My wife asked me why I'd been so cold. I told her I was practicing. The coffee mug shattered against the kitchen floor. She didn't know I'd spent the last 4 months building a case that would dismantle her world. 87 nights of lies, one private investigator, and a file 3 inches thick. By the time she realized what was happening, I'd already won. This is how a quiet man dismantles a cheater's life, one document at a time. My name is Michael Lawson. I'm 42 years old, and I own 2 pet supply stores in Atlanta, Georgia. One in Decatur, the other near Marietta. I started the first one 12 years ago with nothing but a small business loan and a dream of working with animals. Built it up from scratch, opened the second location 5 years later. It's been good to me, good to my family. Or at least, I thought it was. That Tuesday morning started like dozens before it. I was in the kitchen at 6:30, packing lunch for my son, Ethan. 10 years old, 4th grade, obsessed with reptiles, snakes, lizards, anything that slithered. I'd just finished cutting the crusts off his sandwich when Rachel, my wife, walked in. 40 years old, pharmaceutical sales, or so she said. Lately, I wasn't so sure what she actually did during those late-night conferences that never seemed to end. She poured herself coffee, moving through the kitchen like a ghost. We hadn't talked in weeks, not really, just surface-level logistics about Ethan's soccer practice or groceries. Then she asked, "Why are you so cold lately?" I looked up from Ethan's lunchbox, met her eyes for the first time in days. The same brown eyes I'd fallen for in college, now holding something else. Maybe guilt, maybe fear. I said, "Practicing for when you leave." The mug slipped from her hand and exploded on the tile. Coffee splashed across the white grout, steam rising. The noise brought Ethan running down the stairs. "Dad? Mom? What happened?" "Everything's fine, buddy," I called out, eyes still on Rachel. "Just a little accident. Go brush your teeth." He hesitated, then nodded and disappeared.
Rachel just stood there, hand gripping the counter. "What did you mean by that?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Check your email before you head to work," I said, sliding Ethan's lunchbox into his backpack. "You'll understand." Then I grabbed my keys and left. She didn't know it, but I'd spent 4 months preparing for this moment. My father, Thomas Lawson, 71 years old, a Vietnam vet, and the toughest man I know, had given me one piece of advice when I told him what was happening. "Document everything, son. Don't get mad, get smart." So I did. I'd hired a private investigator, organized bank statements, GPS logs, credit card receipts, and time-stamped photos. I knew where she went, who she met, and how often she lied. After dropping Ethan at school, I got a text from Ray Cole, my financial consultant. "Everything's ready." At 8:45, I was at my store, pretending to care about reptile feed and customer returns, but my mind was on Rachel, probably sitting at home, staring at her laptop, realizing her life was about to change forever. The folder I'd sent her contained everything: receipts from the Hilton and Bookhead, photos from restaurants she claimed she'd never been to, text messages she'd thought she'd deleted, and the most damning, photos of her and Derek Patterson, the man she'd been seeing for months. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Rachel. I ignored it, twice. On the third call, I answered. "Michael, please, we need to talk." "I'm at work." "The documents? That's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like, Rachel. 4 months. 87 nights. Do you really think I wouldn't find out? I didn't mean for it to happen.
Then explain the photos, I cut in. Explain why you were at the Blue Ridge Grill with him when you told me you were in Macon for a conference. Silence. I'll be home at 6, I said. Ethan's staying with your mother tonight. We'll talk then. That afternoon, Dad came by the store. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside, more photos, more dates. Proof that her affair had started long before I even suspected. She's been playing you longer than you thought, Dad said quietly. I nodded. I'm not angry anymore, Dad. I'm focused. Good, he said, because anger makes you sloppy. Focus wins wars. At 6 o'clock sharp, I pulled into our driveway. Her car was already there, lights on in the kitchen. She was waiting. I walked in. Rachel sat at the table, eyes red, mascara streaked. Where's Ethan? She asked softly. With your mom. She nodded. Michael, please, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I said. Her voice cracked. Derek and I, it was a mistake. 6 months, Rachel. That's not a mistake. That's a lifestyle. I was lonely, she said. You were always working. I was building something for this family, for you, for our son. She slammed her hands on the table. I needed more than security. I needed to feel seen. I took a slow breath. And you chose betrayal over conversation. You didn't just cheat on me, Rachel. You cheated on Ethan. Her face broke. What happens now? I dropped a folder on the table. You have 2 options. We mediate quietly. I get primary custody. You get visitation. Or we go to court, and I show the judge what kind of mother abandons her kid for 87 nights in 4 months. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did. That night, I drove to pick up Ethan. My hands were steady on the wheel. 3 days later, I got a call from Atlanta General Hospital. Ethan had fallen during gym class, possible concussion. I raced there. Rachel didn't answer her phone. Not once. When I arrived, my son was lying in a hospital bed, scared and bruised. Hey, buddy, I said, taking his hand. Dad's here. He smiled weakly. Where's Mom? At work, I said softly. But I'm here now. Hours later, she finally texted, Is he okay? My phone was on silent. I didn't reply. Instead, I had the hospital update my records. I was now Ethan's primary contact. That was the moment I knew I was done. Not angry, not bitter, just done. Days later, we stood in front of a judge. My lawyer, Margaret Russo, presented everything. The records, the photos, the hospital call logs. Rachel's attorney tried to spin it as a hard-working mother balancing a demanding career. But the judge saw the truth. Mrs. Lawson, she said, you abandoned your child's emotional needs. Mr. Lawson has demonstrated stability and responsibility. Custody is granted to him. Rachel cried in court. I didn't. Months later, Ethan and I moved into a smaller house near Decatur. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a dog named Scout. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Rachel saw Ethan every other weekend. Some visits went well, others didn't, but he was safe. One night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked, Dad, are you happy? I thought for a long time before answering. Yeah, buddy, I am. He smiled. Me too. I kissed his forehead, turned off the light, and stood in the doorway, watching the boy who had become my entire world.
Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destruction. It's peace. And I finally had mine.